In Burkina Faso, there are reports that 200 soldiers have been killed in attacks by an Al-Qaeda affiliate.
200 Burkina soldiers dead, a town in flames, and no one saw it coming. But was this the work of insurgents or something far more calculated? Let's find out. Burkina Faso has seen dozens of ambushes over the past decade, but nothing like what happened in Djibo. There were no warning signs, no buildup, no known disputes in the days before. The strike came like lightning, not just swift, but architectural. That's the word analysts are whispering behind closed doors. Because what unfolded in Djibo wasn't messy or improvised. It looked like it was built, piece by piece, with a clear purpose. Not just to kill, but to communicate. Let's dissect the anatomy of this message. First, the target was symbolic. Djibo is not the biggest town in northern Burkina Faso, but it is a strategic one, not for its population, but for what it represents. Just months ago, Traoré's government began routing supplies and tactical resources through Djibo as part of a larger decentralization effort. His goal? To take power away from the old capital-centered system and empower the regions. That move, if successful, would threaten not just the local elite, but foreign firms and embassies that rely on central leverage to control deals, resources, and influence. Then came the precision of the strike. The attackers didn't just hit the base. They targeted the police station, the local prison, the hospital, and the market, each in rapid succession. That kind of sweep isn't typical of fragmented insurgent cells. It's military doctrine, the kind you see in invasions. Hit the law, then the social services, then the economic heart. Whoever orchestrated this had an intimate knowledge of how to paralyze a functioning town. And they weren't interested in territory. They left after the job was done. No looting, no hostage-taking, no demands. And what about the silence before the storm? Northern Burkina Faso has intelligence networks embedded in villages and checkpoints. There are community defense groups, Volontaires pour la Défense de la Patrie VDPs, spread across towns like Djibo. Yet none of them picked up chatter. No movement, no convoy reports, no intercepted plans. The attackers appeared out of nowhere and disappeared just as fast. That kind of stealth requires external coordination, either from a foreign-trained cell or one that's been given advanced intelligence from outside. Local groups don't have that luxury, but private military contractors and foreign intelligence operatives do. Which brings us to the aftermath. The claim of 200 soldiers dead came not from Burkina Faso's military. It didn't come from eyewitnesses or Red Cross teams first. It came from affiliate groups and was immediately boosted by a Western think tank known for monitoring insurgent propaganda. And within hours, major global news outlets were echoing the figure like gospel. Now ask yourself, who benefits from that narrative? Because this isn't just about a burnt-out town in the north. It's about shaping the world's perception of Traoré's government. It's about suggesting that Burkina Faso can't protect itself, that the junta is losing, that its military is broken, and by extension, that rejecting Western support was a fatal mistake. And that's the real battlefield. The bullets were real, yes, but the bigger weapon was the message. A warning, a humiliation ritual, a spectacle meant to reach not just Ouagadougou, but Bamako, Niamey, and every other capital thinking of turning its back on the West. The question now is, who fired the first shot? When the smoke cleared in Djibo, the world saw scorched buildings and burned bodies. But some saw the opportunity. Every bullet fired, every hospital torched, every soldier buried. It all served someone's interest. Not the foot soldiers who carried out the operation. Not the civilians left to bury their dead. No, the true winners are far away from the battlefield, sitting in corporate boardrooms, diplomatic lounges, and foreign intelligence rooms with maps and mineral charts pinned to their walls. To understand the real story, you have to follow the money, not the mayhem. Burkina Faso is sitting on gold, literally. It's Africa's fourth largest producer of gold and one of the cheapest places on earth for foreign companies to mine. For years, Western corporations, particularly Canadian, British, and French mining firms, extracted billions while paying the country a pittance. Licenses were negotiated behind closed doors. Profits were expatriated. Communities near mines remained dirt poor, poisoned, and ignored. Then, Traoré came. In less than a year, he froze exploitative mining contracts, audited international deals, and began reclaiming state ownership over key resources. That meant only one thing for the companies that once treated Burkina Faso like a glorified ATM: war on their bottom line. Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. So when the Djibo massacre happened, it didn't just shake public morale, it sent gold prices soaring. Investors panicked, citing instability in the region. What they meant was this: we might lose control. And every time there's a spike in violence, foreign-held gold shares rally. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's a pattern. Financial analysts routinely track Sahel conflict data as investment indicators. Blood equals profit. But gold isn't the only card on the table. Djibo was also being developed as a northern staging ground for agricultural independence. The government had earmarked funds to reroute supply lines away from French-dominated trade corridors, allowing Burkina Faso to feed itself and export surplus rice to neighboring countries. That rice was grown using techniques and seeds sourced from African and Asian partners, not the usual GMO giants in the West. In other words, Djibo was about to become a symbol of food sovereignty. Blowing it up wasn't just tactical, it was ideological sabotage. Because if Burkina Faso shows the rest of Africa that it can feed itself without Monsanto, Nestlé, or IMF credit lines, the entire continent starts asking dangerous questions. And nothing scares the status quo more than a hungry population learning how to grow its food. The West needs instability to maintain leverage. That's why humanitarian NGOs, many of them funded by Western governments, flood the country with dependency aid the moment the dust settles. Traoré says Burkina Faso can survive without Western handouts, so they manufacture a crisis, and in comes the rescue. Not to save lives, but to justify presence, control narratives, and plant eyes on the ground. Let's not forget the military angle. Burkina Faso is no longer hosting French troops, and American intelligence assets have been pushed out. But Djibo was once a location scouted for forward operations by foreign forces. That loss of access wasn't taken lightly, and when intelligence goes blind, proxy warfare fills the vacuum. So who wins from this attack? Not the groups. They'll be hunted, as always, eventually discarded like all pawns. The real winners are mining cartels facing nationalization, agri-giants threatened by local self-reliance, foreign embassies shut out of decision-making rooms, and intelligence networks desperate for chaos to reopen doors. And the real loser? A country that dared to choose itself. The flames in Djibo are profitable to some, but they burn through Burkina Faso's future. The game is global, and it's rigged. In Burkina Faso, when gunfire erupts and bodies drop, there's a name that's often whispered before the smoke even clears: affiliate insurgent groups. They're always conveniently responsible. Their statements show up on insurgent forums almost too quickly. Their casualty claims are wildly exaggerated, yet echoed verbatim by global media houses. But here's the uncomfortable truth no one wants to say out loud: it is no longer just an insurgent group. It's a brand, and someone else is buying the product. In theory, it is an affiliate with a mission to impose Sharia and create an Islamic caliphate across the Sahel. But if that's true, why are their attacks selective, professional, and strategically aligned with the interests of foreign powers? Why do they repeatedly target infrastructure, resource zones, and regions that are reclaiming state control? Why do their offensives intensify exactly when governments like Burkina Faso begin asserting independence from Western military and economic control? The reality is far murkier than religious war. It's transactional. The group is not a centralized army. It's a network of loosely affiliated fighters, many of whom operate more like freelancers for chaos. And just like freelancers, they follow the money. Whether it's arms smuggled from Libya, training received in obscure desert camps, or intelligence fed from untraceable sources, these operations require backers, logistics, and clear objectives. That doesn't come from thin air. And here's where it gets even more suspicious. In the Djibo attack, witnesses reported drone surveillance in the hours before the assault. Not drones used by the Burkina Faso military, but foreign-grade aerial reconnaissance. Who provided that intel to the attackers? How did the group know where to strike, how to coordinate across multiple sites, and how to vanish before reinforcements arrived? Because that's not insurgency. That's military-grade choreography. And there's precedent. In Libya, so-called Islamist fighters were armed and equipped by Western intelligence to bring down Gaddafi. In Syria, entire insurgent groups were financed to fight the Assad regime, then quietly abandoned or rebranded. In the Congo, militia groups sponsored by mining interests slaughtered civilians to clear out resource zones. Why should the Sahel be any different? The West doesn't need to wear uniforms. It just needs a mask. And the affiliate groups fit perfectly. Even the propaganda pipeline smells like coordination. The Site Intelligence Group, a private U.S. company notorious for monitoring and amplifying insurgent threats, was the first to report the 200 soldiers killed in Djibo. Site has a pattern. It publishes unverifiable terror claims at critical geopolitical moments, always favoring narratives that justify Western re-engagement. It's the same playbook used in Iraq, Syria, and Afghanistan. So when the Site report dropped, major media didn't hesitate. They didn't verify. They didn't wait for Burkina Faso's official response. They just repeated the number, and the damage was done. Suddenly, the world saw a headline, not a question. And once again, the group was blamed, but never questioned. But here's what they won't tell you. The affiliate groups don't need to win. It just needs to create enough fear that Burkina Faso is forced to beg for help. Military help, foreign bases, UN missions, and IMF loans. That's the real goal. Not caliphate, compliance. So the next time a town burns and a foreign monitoring agency tells you who did it, ask yourself, who benefits from believing in the mask? Because until we tear it off, Burkina Faso will keep bleeding in someone else's war. Burkina Faso was not attacked in isolation. It was attacked as a symbol, a piece of a bigger vision that has shaken the corridors of global power. The rise of the Alliance of Sahel States AES. This alliance, forged between Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, isn't just a military agreement. It's a statement, a manifesto, a rejection of the old order. And that's precisely why it's now in someone's crosshairs. The Djibo massacre wasn't just an assault on a military base. It was a calculated attempt to fracture momentum. Because when the AES was announced, it triggered panic in all the right boardrooms. For decades, these three countries were considered too poor, too landlocked, too weak to matter, dependent on French troops, USAID funding, IMF loans, and externally controlled supply chains. But something shifted. Three military leaders, Traoré in Burkina Faso, Goïta in Mali, and Chiani in Niger, began acting in concert. They didn't just remove foreign troops. They began redesigning regional infrastructure, creating shared defense strategies, and discussing a joint currency. This wasn't just talk. Railways, banking structures, agricultural networks, and intelligence sharing pacts were being signed into law. That was the threat. Not war, not coups, but functional independence. So ask yourself, what's the fastest way to sabotage a rising alliance? You attack one node, publicly, violently, and let fear do the rest. Djibo was that message. You think you can build this union? Watch us break it. Because AES is in more than 3 countries. It's an idea, and ideas spread. Since the formation of AES, countries like Guinea, Chad, and even Senegal have started questioning their foreign alignments. Popular protests have erupted against French troops in various West African capitals. There's talk of creating an ECOWAS alternative, one not dominated by elite politicians acting as middlemen for global corporations. That scares the empire, not because these countries are militarily powerful, but because they're no longer obeying. And Djibo was the empire's reply. Burn the base, sow doubt, show the people what happens when you break ranks, use affiliate groups as the mask, use international media to amplify the fear, and most importantly, divide the alliance from within. But there's more. AES countries have been inching closer to non-Western partners, particularly Russia, China, and other BRICS plus nations. This triangle threatens to drag West Africa out of the dollar-dominated orbit. Chinese agricultural tech, Russian military support, and BRICS-backed financial tools are offering these nations a real exit from colonial dependency. That makes the AES alliance not just defiant, but dangerously viable. Djibo, then, was not just Burkina Faso's wound. It was a warning shot across the entire AES framework. The attackers didn't need to destroy the whole house, just smash one window, and make the rest think twice about staying inside. But there's a flaw in that plan. The people in these nations, especially the youth, have seen behind the curtain. They know that the foreign bases didn't bring peace. The IMF loans didn't build roads. The UN missions didn't protect their villages. What they see in AES is the first chance for real African unity built from within. The question now is, will they let fear undo it? Because the true test of the AES alliance isn't whether it can sign pacts in a quiet office, it's whether it can stand firm when one of its own is bleeding on the ground. And Burkina Faso is watching to see who stands with them. Burkina Faso is bleeding, but that doesn't mean it's broken. If there was ever a moment that could define the leadership of Captain Ibrahim Traoré and test the resolve of the new African order he represents, it's now. The attack on Djibo was meant to destabilize, to humiliate, to slow down the gears of transformation that Traoré set in motion when he expelled foreign troops, rejected IMF dependency, and vowed to return the land and gold to its rightful owners. But history has shown us something very simple. Every revolution is eventually tested by fire. The question is whether that fire consumes the movement or forges it into something indestructible. This is that test. Traoré can't simply respond with grief and condolences. He must pivot from victim to strategist, because what's happening isn't just a security crisis. It's a war of narratives, a war of vision, and above all, a war of futures. His response must not only address the immediate chaos, but lay the groundwork to ensure that such attacks, and the foreign-backed interests behind them, never again dictate Burkina Faso's destiny. First, he must consolidate domestic resilience, not just with arms, but with knowledge. Burkina Faso's defense isn't only its soldiers, it's the eyes and ears of its people. Traoré should expand the volontaires, pour la défense de la patrie VDPs. Yes, but more importantly, he must embed popular political education at every level, explaining to the youth, to farmers, to teachers, exactly who benefits when Burkina Faso suffers. A people that knows the true enemy is a people that cannot be fooled by masks. Second, Traoré needs to rewire the state's response mechanisms. Djibo proved that reliance on centralized command fails when speed is crucial. He must move toward a decentralized security model with autonomous defense clusters tied directly to local leadership but plugged into a national coordination grid. In other words, a new security architecture built by Burkina, for Burkina. Third, the AES alliance must not merely release statements of solidarity. It must institutionalize mutual defense, not just in bullets, but in intelligence sharing, economic retaliation mechanisms, and joint counter-propaganda units. If Niger and Mali stay quiet now, the architects of this war will believe their plan worked. But if they answer Djibo with direct action, visible drills, joint force deployments, resource pooling, the signal is flipped. You struck one of us. We're building 10 times stronger. Fourth, Traoré must use this moment to complete what he began economically. Turn Djibo into a national priority. Rebuild it with local labor. Let Burkinabe companies pave their roads. Let AES nations send machinery, doctors, and architects. Make the recovery a stage, a living monument to resilience. Show the world, and the saboteurs, that no bullet can kill the spirit of self-determination. And finally, perhaps most dangerously, Traoré must take the information war to the global front. That means calling out the game by name, not in whispers, but from the podium. Let him stand before the AU, the UN, the world's press, and say what many know but fear to admit. This was not an insurgent attack. This was a foreign-funded operation disguised as an insurgency. This was punishment for sovereignty, and Burkina Faso will not kneel. Because this isn't just about Djibo, or even Burkina Faso. This is the battle for who gets to design Africa's future, the continent's people, or the boardrooms that think they own it. Traoré must now decide. Will he retreat into damage control? Or will he use Djibo as the spark that ignites a continental fire? Who do you think is behind all this? What should be done about it? Let us know in the comments section. Should Africa unite against the real force behind this attack? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.